Hello everyone, welcome to Lessons from a Sixth Line. This is our April edition, cutting it right close at the end of April. But Sally will be joining us, my dog is joining us today. Say hi as you're coming in, hi. I hope that your month of April has been fabulous. Mine has been wonderful. It is 26 degrees, I don't know Fahrenheit, so it's 26 degrees Celsius here in New York City today. It's hot, and I'm so happy about that. So summer's on its way. Welcome to Lessons from a Sixth Line. The sixth line in human design, that's where the title comes from, is the role model. And in this series, I share different lessons that I've learned along the way. The way that the role model profile works in human design is for the first 30 years of our life, we learn through trial and error. So I very much learned through my mistakes, but those mistakes have been alchemized into lessons, and they are truly assets to me now. So in Lessons from a Sixth Line, I share a different lesson. And today, the lesson that I want to talk about is this thing that really arrested me for a really long time in my life. And that is feeling the need to know all the parts or have something completely figured out before I make a step towards it. So years and years ago, before I started doing inner work, there were so many things in my life that I kind of wanted to do, but they just stayed there as wants to do. Almost saying it as a desire is even too much. Like it was just a want. Hi, Synth. Say hi as you guys come in. And, ask questions, comment, let me know what you're thinking as I'm sharing things. So I wanted so many things, but they just stayed there. They just stayed as these ideas that I didn't engage with whatsoever, because the idea of taking part in it felt way too big. It was like this whole big endeavor rather than just a thing that I wanted to try. I can say genuinely, I have done more new things in the past 1 year than I think I have in the previous 20. The past 1 year, I've tried more new things. And it simply came from this releasing of the need to have every single thing figured out before I make a step towards it. So I'm taking this class right now, okay? It's an identity work class. And it's been really interesting hearing people share, hi mom, my mom's here, sharing their experiences with really struggling. Some people have been really candid in sharing how they're struggling with this idea around doing identity work and changing who they are. And it occurred to me something, hi Mel, something that sparked from watching these experiences is that I thought about how did I've been so many different versions of myself, okay? And I'm how did that happen? Because I don't remember ever consciously saying, I'm going to be a new person now. That never happened. I just kind of became what I became over time. And it reminded me of something. So about 11 years ago, I used to be a smoker, and it was New Year's Eve. I had very recently moved to New York City. It was my first New Year's in New York City, and my friend flew in from Toronto. I'm from Toronto originally, and my friend flew into Toronto to experience New Year's Eve with me, and I was a smoker, so she brought me a whole carton of Marlboro Lights from Greece. I used to love Marlboro Lights, the Greek ones specifically. So she brought me this carton, right? Amazing, yay, thank you so much. So I have this whole carton. I take out a pack, we get ready, we get all dolled up, we go out to this New Year's Eve party. The ball drops, we do the whole thing, yay! And then we're okay, let's go outside for a smoke. So we go outside for a cigarette. I open the box, my fresh new pack of Marlboro Lights. I open the box, I take out a cigarette, and I was I had this entire full body experience of just being disgusted. And I put the cigarette back in the box, I closed it, and I was I am so sorry, dude, but you can have this. You can keep the carton. I don't smoke anymore. And I have never touched a cigarette since. I did not set out when I went to this New Year's Eve party. I didn't set out like, as a New Year's resolution, I will no longer be a smoker. I didn't do that. But when I think about it, a year before that, I had started making these small steps towards becoming more healthy. So I started changing how I was eating. I started working out regularly. I started just, changing the way that I move and I sit. I have like spinal stuff, so I was doing postural stuff. And I was making all these little changes to become more healthy. What had happened was that throughout the year, I slowly was adopting the identity of a healthy person. And all of a sudden, that identity kind of took over and it didn't fit with smoker. So I didn't set out to no longer have the identity of being a smoker. But in that moment, because of these small steps that I had made, my identity became, in a singular moment, not a smoker. If I kind of tried to just go for the final thing, for the final outcome, I don't know that I would have gotten there. And I started to realize that all the things that I were accomplishing, they came because I never tried to do the whole thing at once. So I think what happens is this focus on the outcome. We get so focused on the final destination, and it's so big and it's so different from who we are, and it seems so intimidating that it becomes impossible to make us to make any moves towards it. It feels like you have to become an entirely new person for that thing. I started a podcast recently, and actually the episode that published today is about perfectionism, and I definitely suffered from that in my younger days. And it's the same kind of idea, like being so focused on everything having to be done this certain way makes it impossible to make a move. So I could have started a podcast a long time ago, but to me, it seemed like a lot of work. It seemed like this, you have to, be a great speaker. You have to know how to do I'm not good with technology. You have to know how to do all these technological things. There were all these things that was involved. I wanted to start I could have started a business years ago. There were so many things that I could have done. I had all these amazing ideas for apps. So many things that I could have done, but it just seemed like I'd have to do so many things to be that, or become an entirely new person to be that. And so they never stayed anywhere other than ideas. And then all of a sudden, what happened with this podcast was I was working with a coach, and I was simply sharing that I'm really tired. Instagram is the one social media platform that I use. So I figured if I'm going to start a social media platform, I'll do it on Instagram. It's the one that I use. But I don't like editing. I don't like making things into 30-second segments. I don't really enjoy the short form, all that stuff. And we were talking, and as I'm talking, I'm hearing myself, and I'm like, well, why are you making yourself do that then? So then don't do it like that. Okay, so then just talk long form. Okay, well, where can I talk long form? I mean, I guess I could on YouTube. Well, I don't really want to necessarily be on video either. Oh, okay, so I can just talk on audio. Where can I do that? I guess that's what a podcast is. Okay, well, I guess I could do a podcast, but I don't know how to do intros. I don't know how to do music. And then I listen to my favorite podcasts. Half of them don't have intros and they don't have music. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why did I make all these rules about how this thing is supposed to go? And I just started the freaking podcast. I don't have an intro. I don't have intro music. I don't have a lot of things that make podcasts really fancy and beautiful and highly professional. But who's to say that I'm not going to learn those things later on? Lo and behold, last weekend, my husband, who does music production on the side, for fun, made me original podcast music for me, just for me. So I will be having podcast music, intro music. But it didn't stop me. I didn't let it stop me. And now here I am. This morning, I recorded my first episode on someone else's podcast as a guest. How did I get here? I didn't even know that I would even be doing guests, when I started. I didn't think anything past, I have something to say, I want to share it, and I want to share it kind of in long form and not necessarily video, and I started the podcast. And it's growing into this thing little by little by little by little. I get to change it. I get to get better at it. I get to adjust things. We totally forget that nobody, really none of us, get to a place where everything is amazing, kind of like this final product off the bat. Everything in life is a process. Even if we think about parenting, parents will always tell you about how it went with the first kid, and then the second kid was a little better than the third kid. All right, we really got the hang of this. This is how life goes. Things grow. Nature grows. It's this very human thing that we've adopted this strong sense that we have to be perfect and that we have to package everything in this certain way or it's not acceptable. And it's not true. And it can be your greatest excuse to not become what it is that you want to become, or to not accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in life. What if we could just take the first step? Just, what is the thing that's accessible to you now? If I thought about doing the podcast and in terms of all the parts that I don't know how to do and all the parts that I don't like, I wouldn't have done it. But I knew that I could hit record and I knew that I could talk. So I started there. And then next, I'm learning a little bit of editing. And then next, my husband made me music. And then next, and the next, and the next. And it's going to become this absolutely gorgeous, beautiful thing. And I guarantee that there are going to be people that are one day going to listen to the podcast and be like, I could never do that. Look at all that stuff. Yes, but I'm here to tell you it didn't start out that way. And half of the people, not half, I think all of the people that you admire in whatever field that it is, and you think that they are the absolute greatest, I promise you they didn't start out that way. They didn't. We kind of have to let go of this idea. It goes back to the first episode that I ever made for Lessons from a Sixth Line. Going back to that idea of being unwilling to make a mistake. We have to let go of that. Because everything in life is the journey. Our society right now, and social media doesn't help with all its filters and its beautifulness, and I'm not saying I don't like a filter. I have my ring light right now to illuminate my face. I'm not saying that we don't like any of these things or that these things are bad, but it does start to kind of affect the way that we observe ourselves. And we start to forget that we are just human and that things don't come polished and that everything isn't edited perfectly, in actual real life. In real life, you make a small step towards things and then you get better and then you learn and then you adjust and then you get better, and it just keeps going like that. And the reality is, it's not just about being brave, okay? So this episode wasn't just about being brave and getting started. That was what episode 1 was about in terms of making mistakes. This episode is really about not needing to know every step along the way. And this is more than, I'm just going to tell you this hairy-fairy spiritual stuff about, it's about the journey. It's not about the outcome. Yeah, we've all heard it. It's true, but that's not even all of it. For example, do you know how I figure out what I'm going to talk about in my podcast? I open my voice notes app in my iPhone. I press record and I just start talking. Sometimes I'm talking for 30 seconds. Sometimes I'm talking for 15 minutes. Who knows? But eventually, in me just talking, I hit upon a thread. I hit upon a thing and I'm like, ooh, that was it. That's it. That's what I want to riff on. That's what my heart has lit up about. Like, that's what I want to talk about. I had no idea when I pressed record what I was going to talk about. but I know that I have things to talk about. And I just let the process tell me what it is. It's the same thing in our lives. If I needed to know what I was going to talk about, I just wouldn't do any episode. It wouldn't happen. It would be like maybe once every 2 months, I might be like, okay, that's exactly what it is. It doesn't work like that. And isn't life the same way? This is where the process, the walking through life, the journey is really important. Think of the people that you've met in your life. Think of the jobs that you have. I thought about it last year for the first time. For the first time I realized, I thought back, I had never applied for a single job that I had. I mean, past like teenage years. I used to work at McDonald's. I applied for that. Who knows why I lasted there for 2 weeks. But in my career, I never applied for a single job that I had. And I didn't even notice. What happened was, for my first one, I was in university and they said that they're going to have this, close to our graduation, they were having this kind of panel where you could learn about different fields, different employers, blah, blah, blah. I went to this panel thing and there were recruiters there. And these recruiters had this conversation with me about moving to New York. And in New York, they offered this beautiful package about how they would relocate me and I would start working as an OT in the Big Apple. I took that opportunity. And here I am in New York City 11 years later. I never planned for a second that I'd be living in New York. But I just went to this panel and this thing happened. Was that about the outcome? Did I go there saying like, I'm going to find a job today? Absolutely not. But I had to experience that. I had to step through this journey. I had to be in the process of my life. And then I met this person and this person led me here. So much of who I am today is because of New York City. If somebody would have asked me 12 years ago, would you ever be living in New York City? I would have said, are you crazy? That place smells so bad. It stinks. It's loud. There's cockroaches everywhere. It's disgusting. I can tell you genuinely, when I leave New York, I miss the stink a little bit. I don't know. There's something kind of endearing about it. New York is a very magical, special place, but you truly have to live here to get it. Yes, it is objectively gross, but it has an energy. It has a spark. But you see, I wouldn't have known that. Okay, and then my next job, I was working with the recruitment, and I ended up working at a hospital. They had these different options. I ended up working at a hospital, and I knew that I wanted to work in psychiatry. My passion has always been mental health. But the thing is that finding a mental health job in New York City is very difficult. Me coming from Toronto, I had a very different experience with the healthcare system. We have it's just very, very different. And OTs are very much at the forefront of mental health work in Toronto, in Canada. It's not the same in the United States. So finding a mental health job here is difficult. And also, they don't pay you. It's New York City. I need to pay bills, right? I have rent. So I worked in a hospital. I worked in rehab instead. And while I was working in rehab, I make friends on the job, of course. One day, one of my coworkers says to me, "Hey, Christelle, you're always talking about mental health and you say that you really love it. My old supervisor called me today and said she's leaving her position. She's been in that position for however many years. Nobody leaves this position at this hospital because they pay very well. And if you're really into mental health, you're holding on to it. So she's finally leaving. And so she called me and offered it to me. And my friend hated mental health. She's like, I'm never going to work in there, but you talk about it all the time. You want me to hook it up? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Went on the interview, hired on the spot. And that's how I've been in the job that I'm in right now for 7 years. So it just happened. If I was like, no, I refuse, I'm only going to work in mental health, how little pay would I be making? How would I have met the people that I've met? How would I have made the connections that I've met? Furthermore, I learned that I actually love rehab skills. I love physical disability skills. I loved working with the elderly. When I went to OT school, I thought that I wanted to work in pediatrics. I worked in peds for a couple months, I was like, never again. I actually hated it. I had this really strong idea that this is what I was going to love. We don't know. Half the things in our life that we think are going to be important to us, we don't know that they're not. And until we actually walk through life, experience things, get our hands wet, our feet wet, interact with people, have, circumstances come at us, fall on our face, pick ourselves up, all of the things all along the way, it's creating who we are in the process, right? Who we are in the process is what's leading to whatever is at the end of the day. Who's to say that that thing, this final destination, whatever you think it is, isn't just a feeling? Like, what if it's just content? What if it's just happy? What if it's just peace? What if at the end of the day it's just pride in myself that I did it? Really, when it comes down to it, all the things that we think that we want to do come down to like a base feeling that we want to feel about ourselves. And everything else that we experience on the way there is what allows us to feel that. So what I'm calling for today, the lesson from the role model, the lesson from the sixth line is stop wasting your time. Stop trying to have it all figured out. Let me know if this is resonating to you. Let me know if you're like, no, it's impossible. Or if you're like, okay, yes. Think about it right now. I want you to think about it right now. Right now. What is something that you've been saying that you've been wanting to do for years? What is one thing, one move that you can make towards that? Like, is there one part of that you can move towards? You don't have to learn anything. You just can do it right now. Like an easy fix. Maybe you can call someone. Maybe it's something you can look up on the internet. Is there one aspect that you can do right now? I bet you that there is. Can you do it? Can you do this? Just do that one thing. And then when you do that one thing, what's the next step? What's called for in the next step? What I noticed in this whole experience that I've had with my podcast, and again, that was the episode that I published today, was the experience, the emotional experience that came from me making that first step was so much greater than I ever knew that it would be. It felt so aligned. It felt so good to me that what I noticed was the aspects of building a podcast that didn't seem appealing or that I felt like are too difficult for me to do, I now actually became interested in figuring out because I was lit up. So that's the other aspect. Who's to say that making that first step towards it doesn't give you the fuel, doesn't give you the motivation, doesn't give you the insight that you need for the next step? If it's dating, right? Like, it seems like this huge, big, scary thing. Maybe just make the profile. Or maybe just take some pictures of yourself. Like, what's one step that you can make towards that thing, okay? Maybe if it's like going back to school and you don't know what it's for, can you just like browse a college forum and see what people, what classes are available next fall? How do you know that like one of those things won't spark it? If it's like fitness of some sort, can you just like, I don't know, go for a walk? Like, what's one step that you can make towards it? I ended up being a non-smoker simply because, like, I started working out. And then in starting working out, and, like, when I started working out, I was just doing very simple things. Like, I was running. I hate running, and I started running. And even in saying that I don't like things, in running, I realized I hated running. And I was like, I gotta do something else. And that's when I started getting into the gym. And I started weightlifting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love weightlifting. I wouldn't have started weightlifting if I didn't run and knew I hated it. So Like, what's one step that you can make towards that thing? Oh my gosh, here's another one. I used to always say, I can't do makeup. I've always been a person who's very simple. Like, maybe I put on blush. I like blush. But like, very simple, barefaced has been my style. Very kind of natural. And I'm like, I can't do makeup. I can't do makeup. I can't do makeup. I can't do makeup. My coworker finds this really cool makeup a couple of years ago and was like, told me like, it's really easy. It's really simple. You use this person, they'll tell you how to do it, and you just try, you'll just learn on your way. And I'm like, ugh, I can't. I don't know how to do makeup. And she's like, I don't know how to do makeup either, right? But I'm learning, and I see like how lovely her face looks with this makeup. So I'm like, okay, she's gonna help me. Oh my God, I hate that thumbs up thing. Do you guys know that it does that now? So they're gonna have this like sale at the makeup company. It's called Saint Makeup, by the way. It's amazing. I'm obsessed now. And I was like, all right, let me go for the sale. Just the shopping experience was fun. Just the shopping experience. So I enjoyed that. The makeup came. I watched a video and I very slowly did it. I just did one little thing. I'm like, I'm just gonna learn how to do very base. I don't even want a main foundation color. Fast forward to 2 years later, guys. I have all the things. I'm doing eyeshadow. If she will tell you, I literally said, I will never wear eyeshadow. Well, that's eyeshadow, okay? I loved it. I loved the process of it. I loved how I looked. My husband loved it. Like, I felt beautiful. I felt like, oh, I don't look like, overdone. I just look enhanced. And I just got started. It just started with me starting really simple, just trying it out, and next thing I know, I really enjoy putting on makeup. So what is one thing? It is the end of April. We are moving into May. This is my invitation to you for this summer. Do this for yourself. Is there one thing right now that you know that you've been wanting to do, that's been on your heart? Break it down. What is one step you can move towards that thing, and then a next step, and then a next step, and just keep going and see how far you go. Take all the pressure off. Take the outcome out of it. Do it for the fun of it. Just see how it goes. If you hate it, you can stop. I hated running. I started doing something else. This isn't about what it needs to be in the end. This is just for you starting to build your credit with yourself. Build your credit with yourself as a person who follows through. Show yourself that you're able to make steps, because the more that we don't do it, the harder it becomes to even to start. Like you become a person where you think of it like, oh yeah, I'll never do that. We don't want to think that about ourselves. We don't. And I can tell you from my own experience, it really only took me doing a couple of things to now start this snowball effect of this year where I'm trying anything. If I say I'm gonna feel like doing it, I'm telling you guys, 2024 has been my year of I'm gonna try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But hey, if she can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it. Just try. And if you hate it, stop. So what? So what? But what I've come to see is that 1, I usually like it. 2, I like who I am when I'm doing these things. I like the person that I'm becoming as I allow myself to become. So let's embrace the journey rather than the destination. Let's open ourselves up to the fact that you probably don't know what the destination is. Whatever the destination is that you think it is, it's probably not even that. So let's just start being on the journey. I love you. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. I would love to hear your comments, your thoughts, your feels. Let me know if this resonates. And let me know what else you might want to talk about, what else you might want to hear about in a lesson from the 6th line. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for participating with me. Until next time.